Okay, here are two bump keys. Bump keys are simply made by taking a key blank and cutting the key to the deepest cut that the lock uses. So with the quickset lock, that would be a 6. With the Schlage lock, that would be a 9. Now, I have two different bump keys for Schlage. You notice this has an 8 on it here. Very, very few Schlage locks actually use a number 9 cut. So I start by trying with just 8 cuts on the key. So this is a 5-pin key blank, the SC1. All of the cuts are cut down to a number 8 cut. And then I also have another one that is cut to number 9. But normally the number 8 will work the lock faster than the number 9, simply because, again, most of the Schlage locks don't have a number 9 pin in them anyway. Now, some people will cut the shoulder of the key back a little bit, and they'll put a rubber washer on there so that they can just continue to tap the key without pulling the key back out each time they want to tap it. So there's all kinds of videos about how to make bump keys on the internet, and I'm sure that once you see how they work and you make your own and you practice with them, you'll come up with what you like to use. Okay, now a bump key works much like a pick gun works, in that we're just trying to pop the pins up to the shear line and catch them there. Instead of using the pick gun, when you have a bump key, you're simply using the cuts of the key to bounce the pins. And I'll demonstrate this. We'll open a lock with a bump key and you'll see how it works. But sometimes a bump key will work if the pick gun does not work, because it's already establishing a level for the pins to be at. And so if you try the pick gun and it doesn't work, as another resort or another resource, you could try a bump key. One thing about bump keys, you're going to have more luck with locks that don't have anti-pick pins on them. You're going to have more luck with the older locks that are a little bit worn. You're going to have more luck with the quickset locks and that style of lock than you are with the Schlage locks and the more sophisticated locks. So just keep that in mind as you try to start with the quickset, like I said, and get proficient with the quickset lock, and then move on up to see what you can do with the better locks. But one thing about bump keys is that you have to turn the cylinder the way that it unlocks. You're not going to be able to get the key out and spin the plug back. Once you turn it, it's going to lock the key into the keyway. So whereas if you pick a lock, you can spin the plug back if it's turned the wrong way. With a bump key, you're going to normally need to turn the plug the way that it opens when you bump the key. Here we have a quickset lock. The lock is locked, and we're going to use our bump key and try to bump the lock. Put the key in, pull it back, one pin back out, so that as we bump it, it has some room to go in and make the pins fly up. Put pressure on it into the direction that you will unlock the lock. There it is. So that's how a bump key works. Bump keys are normally cut to the deepest cut used by the lock. Put the bump key in the lock and pull it back one pin. Put turning pressure on the key and wrap it with a small rubber mallet. Okay, manufacturers are doing what they can to make locks more pick resistant and more bump resistant. And one of the things they do is they put in anti-pick pins for the top pins. Another word for top pins is drivers. So if you hear someone talk about the drivers, they're talking about the top pins. But this shape here basically is called a spool pin. This one's a mushroom pin. It kind of has a spool top and then thin and then getting larger at the bottom like a mushroom. Then a T-pin, and then a serrated pin where it just has grooves in there to try to catch the pin on the side of the plug as you try to push it up to trap the top pin. Now there's all different designs of these, all different shapes of these 4 basic designs. So you know, just start to pay attention, look at the top pins, and you can start a collection of the different ones that you come across, where if you can get an extra anti-pick pin, just make a collection of them so you can have them and know basically which manufacturers use which ones. Another technique designed to try to stop picking and bumping of locks is to have what's called a paracentric keyway, where the wards of the keyway try to block the picks from going into the keyway, or at least make it very, very difficult to get the picks in the keyway. In this example, you can see that the pin is basically right up against the bottom of this warding right here. Basically, the definition of paracentric, if a ward comes past the middle of the keyway, then normally it's considered a paracentric keyway. Okay, I've added the anti-pick pins. The spool pins are back in the lock. We're in positions 2 and 4, and we're going to see now if we can pick it with these. This is the same lock we picked earlier without the spool pins, but I've added them back in there, and I've got the lock in the locked position. Let me reset it. Go through the same process. Start at the front, go to the back. Okay, the third one was catchy, the fourth one was catchy. There we go. So you can see that you can pick the lock with the anti-pick pins in there. I do think it takes a lighter touch. I'm going to try to pick it back the other way now. There we go. It's back to the locked position now. This is a brand new Schlage deadbolt, again purchased in September of 2016. We're going to take a look at this lock. Okay, so again, this is the Schlage spool pin, and the Schlage deadbolt that we're going to pick has 4 of these in the lock. So I said it's a brand new lock, and it came off the shelf with 4 of these pins in there. So just expect that. Basically, with all the locks you buy today, you might as well expect anti-pick pins in them, but especially with the new Quickset and the Schlage locks. Okay, I have our Schlage lock mounted here on the display board, and we're going to try to pick this. Again, we got the 4 anti-pick pins in there and the 1 normal pin. And as I try to pick a Schlage lock, I normally will try to pick it in the counterclockwise motion or direction, because I have more room. Right here at the bottom, I get more room. If I put the tension wrench the other way, there's less room directly under the pins. So I will normally try to pick the lock in the counterclockwise, and then I would have to spin it back in the other direction. And I go ahead and just like the other locks, I try to rake it first. Make sure there's nothing in the lock, just the normal procedure. I've already sprayed a little WD-40 in here. And then go ahead and rake it. See what you can get. I mean, you never know. Even with the anti-pick pins, you never know. Some of these will open, very few will open easily. Most of them are a real headache to get open. But I don't feel too many pins sticking up there raking it, so we're going to go ahead and try with the hook pick and Go in there and just like regular, just go ahead and start. Start picking just like normal. Now, we have an advantage in that we know we have 4 anti-pick pins in here in chambers 1 through 4. We already know that. But one thing when you don't know, one thing you can try to pay attention to, as I was trying to explain earlier, is that with a spool pin and a mushroom pin and lots of these anti-pick pins, if you pick it up and you feel the tension wrench give a little bit, and then as you pick the pin more, does the tension wrench try to come back? Does the plug try to turn itself back a tiny bit? And if it does that, that's an indication you have an anti-pick pin. So it just takes a lot of practice and a lot of feel to get used to that. But if you pay attention, you'll notice that with these pins. Now with this narrow keyway, often as you try to go past the front pins to get to the back pins, you knock those out of position. So with the Schlage in particular, I will often just go to the back and try to work forward. There it is. Okay, now that was pretty quick for a Schlage lock, and like I said, don't expect that without a little bit of practice. I used kind of a light tension, and then I increased my tension as I felt 2 or 3 of the pins were picked. Then I increased a little bit of tension on the wrench. But these are just things that you're going to have to just try, and every lock is basically different. So what we would have to do now, we'd have to spin that back, and then we could pull the bolt. That's the way I go about trying to pick a Schlage lock. And we have a brand new Schlage lever handle lock, again purchased September of 2016, that we're going to look at. Put the key in, turn the key, release the locking wafer. Notice how this spring retaining cap floats up here, and the springs are pushing it up. Well, these have T-pins in them, and I'll just show it to you real quick. This is the Schlage F style. I'm just going to show you the pin here. That this is a T-pin. Okay, so you can see here the T-pin the Schlage uses in these F-cylinder locks, and I will tell you these are very difficult locks to pick. With that floating cap they have, combined with these T-pins in all 5 chambers, I just find it a very difficult lock to pick open. And the only way I've really been very successful is using a hook pick. I have not had much success with a pick gun. You can try the pick gun, see what kind of luck you have, but I've had much better luck just using a regular hook pick to pick this lock open. I put it on the door here. It is locked. I had the door open. It was easier to get a better shot with the camera with the door open. So I have the door open. I'm going to try to pick this. I will tell you, this is a difficult lock to pick. And I start basically all Schlage locks trying to pick them in a counterclockwise direction using the hook. Go in there and just start trying to find which ones might cooperate. But with these T-pins in here and this particular style of lock cylinder they have, I can tell you that I end up drilling quite a few of these. This Schlage F-Series lock was the most difficult lock picked on this video. It took nearly 6 minutes. I used only a hook pick and light to medium tension. To save video time, we are only showing about 2 of the 6 minutes. There it is. You should be familiar with 4 types of anti-pick pins: spool pins, mushroom pins, T-pins, and serrated pins. Top pins are often referred to as drivers. A plug that tries to turn itself back as you raise the top pin indicates an anti-pick top pin. Manufacturers use both anti-pick pins and paracentric keyways to make locks pick and bump resistant. In a paracentric keyway, the warding protrudes out past the middle of the keyway. For picking difficult locks, try to use a hook pick with very light to medium tension. In tight keyways, position the tension wrench in the best way to allow more room under the pins. To avoid unsetting the front pins, it is often necessary to pick the pins at the back of the lock first. Here we have an illustration of a wafer lock with the key in it raising the wafers to the shear line. So it's the same as the pin tumbler lock to open. The difference is the shape of the tumblers. And I went over this in the course number 1 about the wafer locks. But to pick the wafer lock open, it's the same principle as the pin tumbler lock. Put pressure on the plug and pick up each one of the wafers to the shear line. The wafer lock will have 2 shear lines, is one difference. That without the key being in here, there would be springs on these lips that would push these wafers down, so they'd be blocking down here. But if you pick it up too high, it can block the other side. So that's one difference. But most wafer locks, if they're single-sided wafer locks, most of those are fairly easy to pick open just using a rake pick. If a rake pick doesn't work, then you could go to a hook or a diamond, half diamond, and get the wafers picked to the correct position. Okay, this is a lock on a metal cabinet. It's a wafer style lock. The lock has to be turned 180 degrees. The lock plug has to turn 180 counterclockwise to be normal to open the lock. And I can go in there and count the wafers. There's 5 wafers in there. 5 wafers. And they're springing up, so I know that we have to push them down to get the lock to pick open. So we're going to just take a rake pick and just see if we can rake them. I'll put this tension wrench in up here, and hopefully we'll have enough room. And that's how simple that was to open a wafer style lock. Just like that. So I could pick it back. Now the wafers are up now. So if I wanted to put it into a closed position, now I would go clockwise and I would have to rake the top to put that back where it was. And you can see it's not quite as easy. It doesn't want to go back to the lock position quite as easy as it came open, but there it goes. So there, now it's back in the locked position. And I'll do it once more. I'll just go ahead and unlock it again. So now we have to rake on the bottom, what is now the bottom part of the keyway, because I've turned it around. There it is. So that's picking your wafer style lock, and most of them, especially if it's a single-sided key, meaning they're not opposing wafers, the wafers all go one direction, most of those are that easy. Opposing wafers can be a bit more difficult. You have to just rake both sides and pick both sides of the keyway to open a double-sided wafer lock. Let's review some of the features of the disc or wafer lock. Disc locks get their name from the shape of the tumblers. Historically, the standard disc tumbler lock had 5 tumblers, but many have less than 5. In automotive use, they often have more than 5. When picking the disc tumbler lock, check to see how many wafers are in the lock, which direction they are moving, and if there are opposing wafers. I have here a drawing illustrating the interior components of a tubular lock, often referred to as an ace lock. The reason they're called ace locks is the Chicago Lock Company sold a lot of these under that brand name. They called them, that was their trade name basically, was the ace lock. So they're often referred to as ace locks. Technically it's a tubular lock. But you can see the pin stack here, and it looks the opposite of what we looked at earlier with the spring being on the bottom, and then this would be the top pin and then the bottom pin. But it's the same concept as the other pin tumbler lock that we looked at. You can see with the key in it, it pushes the bottom pins to where they're flush with the shear line, and the lock can be turned. So we're going to go ahead and try to pick open one of these locks. Okay, this is a cable lock. This is the locking part of it. The bolt part is here, the cable. This hooks around through the cable and secures both ends of the cable. And you can see it is a tubular lock. This might be a little more difficult in that the pins are further down in there, but we'll see if we can pick this lock. Okay, we're going to try to pick this lock using this HPC tubular lock pick. This is a less expensive pick. It just works by putting a rubber band around these 7 picks that slide down, and they have more expensive ones that have an adjustable nut that you turn and you can increase the tension on the picks. But this is one that bought many years ago, and I just never did upgrade it. But the way it works is you have a big washer here. You push the picks down. You see them coming down here at the end of the tool here, and then you just take them on a table or something and push down so that they're all even with the bottom of the tool. And then the way you adjust the tension is you have less tension on the rubber band, so you can either make it tighter or make it looser, but you simply line the pick up with the lock, and once it goes on there, you'll feel it go on. Then just gently wiggle it as you push down. And if it's all the way down and it doesn't come off, then take it back up and start over. But you can see, I'm going to zoom in some for this. Well, it did not move too many of our picks. Now, I may have too much tension on the rubber band here, so we're going to try to loosen that up a little bit. And then we're going to try that again. Get back up here so you can see. So again, take your washer and push all your picks down. Then put it on the table. Push all your picks so that they're even. There's a little post inside that has to line up with the slot on the plug on the lock here. And then the 7 picks should be lined up with the pin stacks. So we'll try that again. And then actually, once you do this, you can measure how far the picks are pushed up, and you can actually cut a key for it. So push in gently while you're kind of wiggling and turning the tool. All the way down. Okay, now let's look and see how many of the picks moved. And again, I'm not getting too much movement on my picks. This one's up a good little bit. That one's up some. These two here are not moved here. So there may still be a little bit too much tension. I don't think so. I think it should be about right. You can kind of tell as you push them down how easy they are to push down. They should be fairly easy, but you should have resistance. So we'll try again. Okay, still did not open the lock, and I'm just kind of inspecting here to see. Looks like almost all of them are moved a little bit, so I think the tension's about right. Felt like it turned. Oh yeah, there we did. We got it open. See? Okay. Well, that took a little while using the wrench, but I'll go ahead and if you don't have one of these, you can pick these the old-fashioned way, and I'll show you how to do that. Tools I'm going to be using to try to pick this tubular lock. I've got a tension wrench. It's kind of a narrow gauge wrench that works pretty good. This is actually a hook pick that's been broken, and then I have a regular hook pick, and then I have a scribe with a real thin point that I may use occasionally if one of them is kind of hard to push. We'll see what we have to do with that. So that's kind of the equipment that I'm going to use, and then first thing, of course, is to put our tension wrench and to hook that little notch in there the best we can. So anyway, so you got tension on the plug, and then we just like we did before, we just check them to see if any of them have a little bit of resistance. I'm going to increase my pressure a little bit because I'm not feeling really any resistance to these. I let the tension back off, then it reset. I'll move some then. We could have just one pin holding it now. Okay, I'm going to increase the tension on that a little bit more. Go back around, see if I'm able to do any better. There, I got it. Okay, so that's how you can pick a tubular lock, but like I say, they do take some practice. Now, one issue with this, having picked this, of course we got this loose, so the customer should be happy with this, but this is now trapped off center. It's one pin over, and it's trapped there. And to get that back, of course, I would have to re-pick it and move it back counterclockwise one position. Let's review some of the features of the tubular lock. Tubular locks are often referred to as ace locks. Ace was actually the trade name Chicago lock used for tubular locks. The standard tubular lock has 7 pins arranged in a circle. The tubular lock uses a tubular-shaped key. Tubular locks use a pin stack similar to normal pin cylinder locks. The theory for picking the tubular lock is the same as the normal pin cylinder. Special tubular picks are available for picking tubular locks. Please take just a moment to like the video and also subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.